just live on my computer. Don't watch TV.
Right.
Watch the occasional thing on Netflix if it's got anything to do with the war on drugs.
Right.
But stopped watching TV in the 90s.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Any reason for that, or just?
Well, I didn't trust the news and politicians anyway.
Yeah.
Prior to that, I had my suspicions. But after going to America, well, everything's way more obvious. There's way more TV commercials, and listening to all the nonsense on the news, I just thought this is complete mind rot. There's more important things to be doing. Yeah.
Fair enough. So, like, you say you watch. If it's something to do with the war on drugs, you'd watch it.
Yeah.
I'd have thought you'd be sick of that by now.
No, because I write about the war on drugs.
Yeah.
I've got a war on drugs series of books, so I need to be up to speed on anything that's out there on the war on drugs.
Yeah.
And I do these talks in London, Manchester, Bristol to adults. They hammer me with questions, and if I don't know what's what, I'm not going to look credible.
Yeah.
And they've watched a lot of these things themselves, read a lot of the books. So, like with Pablo Escobar, for example, I did a talk on Pablo Escobar, and a Colombian woman came up to me and said, "There's just so much more in the Spanish-speaking world." And that motivated me now to write the longest book out there with the most information about Pablo Escobar by getting all these books translated over from the Spanish-speaking world. And it's completely changed how I perceive Pablo Escobar's story.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why is that? Is it just the information they have is like so much more of it than we have over here, or?
Because he lived in Colombia,
Yeah.
and his story was reported in the Spanish newspapers and in through the books written in Spanish, people closest to him. And in the West, we're looking at it through this Western lens of journalism. These people who've not gone and got all these things translated over from Spanish. I mean, one of the biggest myths is that it was the Colombian police that shot him down. And there's a book by one of the members of Los Pepes, the Death Squad, by Don Berner, called Killing the Boss, which describes how the Death Squad would always go in, take these guys out, because the police were afraid of them. And because they were an illegal death squad, they would have to leave the scene, and the police would come and take all the credit. And that's exactly what happened. The Colombian president, Pablo, had made such a fool out of them, the government, running rings around them. They had to restore faith in the government, and they reeled out a number of policemen, and they said to the journalists, "These are the guys who shot Pablo Escobar, make heroes out of these guys. We need faith restored in the government."
So they were sort of like unofficially sanctioned hitmen.
Yes.
Took him out.
Los Pepes were actually, the principals were the Castaño brothers and Don Berner, who were formerly part of the Medellin cartel.
Right.
They knew the ins and outs of Pablo's organisation. The Castaño brothers said that they were going to capture Pablo alive, have a doctor surgically remove his arms and legs, throw the stump on the streets of Medellin, and watch the king of Medellin beg for his life. And that would assure the story would go on. That would be their legend, guaranteed then. They also said that they were going to chop his kids up into little pieces and deliver them to him in a sack. Yeah. And Carlos Castaño said, "I know I'm going to win this war against Pablo because Pablo's got family and I've got no family who are vulnerable. And at the end of the day, we're going to use that to get to him." That's what they did.
Who's going to win?
Exactly what they did, yeah.
That's it, how.
Yeah.
So it's hard to interview you, really, because there's just so much to talk about.
Yeah.
And it's also been covered a lot in interviews with you.
Yeah.
And I'm conscious that I don't want you to just be reading off the same stuff that you always have to reel off in interviews.
Appreciate that.
However, very quickly, if we could just cover your story just very quickly, so that anyone who's listening who doesn't know will quickly get up to speed, and then we can jump off from there.
Freestyle from there.
Yeah.
I'll try and answer it then in a way that I'm not, with different words than I usually answer it with. So,
okay.
So, I'm a young person in the north of England, northwest, from Widnes, little town, chemical manufacturing town. Got anxiety as a teenager and won't get up and dance, won't talk to women, too self-conscious. was almost beat to death by some drunks as well, which compounded it. And then the rave scene began. News headlines every weekend in this country. Prior to the rave scene, you had to line up to get into a nightclub, and it was all snooty, and you had to be in a nice shirt and suit and stuff. All of a sudden, young people are breaking into warehouses, airplane hangars, worrying what the hell they want, taking this drug called ecstasy, and there's all these pictures of the police like chasing these convoys of ravers around the country and stuff. So I'm thinking, what the hell's going on in this country? And I tried ecstasy, and all my anxiety and stress melted away. I wouldn't stop dancing, hugging people, smiling, grinning, sweating all night long. And it had such a big effect on me, I thought to myself, right, when I get to make $1 million in America, I'm going to start to try and throw raves with this money and transfer that scene over there. Now, I had this confidence as a teenager that I was going to make this $1 million in America by the age of 30. And that came about because I started following the stock market at 14 and I started trading it at 16. My teacher, Mr. Dillon, he was actually giving me classes on my own, explaining the Financial Times. So I was telling all my mates in my little town, I'm going to go to America, make $1 million, fly you guys over. That's what I did. So I'm in my 20s, making a couple of million in the stock market, got no common sense at all, just the money goes to my head, and I quit my work in the stock market I go into the office, 6 a.m, meeting, all that stuff. I'm thinking, I could just make money from the party scene, and I got greedy. I applied my business studies degree to this criminal organisation. At the peak of it, got about 200 people working for me. We're bringing, 40,000 hits of ecstasy in at a time from Holland to America. Sammy the Bull Gravano from the Gambino crime family is my competitor. He's out to get me. And the New Mexican Mafia, the most powerful mafia in Arizona at the time, they're protecting me. So, how did I get from A to B? It was a very long road whereby when you're on drugs, it's telling you this is fun, this is cool, you're living like a character out of Pulp Fiction, Blow. But when I sobered up in jail and looked back, I was like, oh my God, what have you done? How on earth are you still alive? Now in the jail, because I ended up in this jail that's got the highest rate of death in America, where guards were murdering mentally ill prisoners, neo-Nazis were murdering prisoners, it was just gang and drug infested mayhem. I started to write everything down, the conditions, dead rats in the food, cockroaches crawling all over us at night. And my writing got smuggled out of maximum security jail by my aunt, put on the internet as a blog, John's Jail Journal, and it went on to attract international media attention to the conditions. And that's what launched me on this unexpected path as a public speaker and an author. Yeah.
Done. Cool.
Yeah.
So obviously there's a lot to talk about because it's such a big story.
Yeah.
So I did want to ask you about Sammy the Bull.
Yes.
And forgive me if I ask anything you've been asked before, but you've been asked so many things.
Go for it.
Probably.
Yeah.
It probably would have come up at some point.
Yeah.
But, I went on I've watched a lot of your videos on YouTube anyway.
Yeah.
But last night I just went on a sort of 4-hour Shaun Attwood binge.
Oh dear.
And I'd actually never watched the Banged Up Abroad thing, so I watched that. And I don't know, they obviously must condense bits and like.
Did you watch it on Netflix?
No, I managed to find it online.
Okay. Okay.
And I watched like clips of it on your page first, and then
yeah.
So obviously they must condense bits and like join stories together and stuff like that.
Absolutely. The Banged Up Abroad episode was 45 minutes long. My life story is a trilogy of books, and the audiobooks alone are 30 plus hours. So I've got people now on YouTube on this Unilad video saying, we watched your Banged Up Abroad episode and you didn't say this, you didn't say that.
Yeah. It's like how
on earth are you going to get 30 hours worth of content into 45 minutes to say everything? So I've got to laugh at these people.
Yeah.
I did not structure the Banged Up Abroad episode. That was National Geographic, the production team, and they did condense some scenes. They had me going to California to pick up my ecstasy, and then in the kitchen, the New Mexican Mafia were all sat in the kitchen. Well, the New Mexican Mafia are actually in Arizona.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Sammy the Bull, some point you get a call, but I don't think it is Sammy the Bull that you got the call about with the price on your head, 10,000.
Yeah.
Was that someone else?
Okay, so I was the first to be selling ecstasy on a large scale in Arizona. There was a lot of little groups, competing groups that I unified under the umbrella of my organisation.
How did that? Sorry. How did that work?
Because I just arrived into the scene. All of a sudden, like, you know, I'm showing up in a twin turbo Mazda RX-7.
Yeah.
I've got all this money to invest. So all these different groups are kind of like just struggling and broke, and they call me the Bank of England, and they're coming to me for money. Then they want me to invest in parties and stuff like that.
So there was you didn't have to be like, this is my turf now. It was just like,
no, the rave. When I arrived in Arizona, the rave scene was all cuddle puddles, people massaging each other, with doing the Vicks inhaler thing, and smiling and dancing and having a good old time.
Right.
But this was before the mafia got into the scene.
I see.
So by unifying all the local groups, I then had a stronghold on information coming in. Yeah. Any threats that would come into the scene, through these hundreds of people that were working for me, that information would immediately get reported back to me. So if people were coming in, like undercover cops, you know, they stood out for a mile. It would always be two older dudes coming in from out of state, want to buy a couple of thousand pills.
Right.
So we would never ever let them infiltrate us. Even in the police reports, after I was arrested, they said it's impossible to infiltrate these people. So when people started showing up who were working for Sammy the Bull, and then beefs started happening between my dealers and their dealers, then you know, I'm the first to be informed about all that, and I'm wondering what's going on, because I didn't know who they were exactly in the beginning.
Yeah.
But I found out. Yeah.
So that something you said there about the undercover police officers, it surprises me how, I don't know if incompetent's the word, but it probably is, but like how obvious they are. You'd have thought they'd be really good at like...
The thing about the police is, yes, the police can be obvious and they can be slow, but they have all the resources in the world, and the efforts to get you are never ending.
Yeah.
So even though they're this bureaucracy that makes all these errors,
they don't go away.
They don't go away. It's like this big monster. It's slowly coming at you. You can see it coming at you, and you can run faster than it.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's just going to smother you to bits.
And I'm guessing because you were on ecstasy at the time, it didn't occur to you.
Oh, I was above the law, you know. Yeah. Drugs were telling me, you're above the law. You're never going to get arrested. You're living like a character out of Blow. And you know, I thought that was normal thinking, because I didn't understand how drugs had scrambled my decision-making processes. I surrounded myself with people who were all also thinking the same things, and we reinforced each other's insane behaviour.
Yeah. So you get the call from Sammy the Bull, well, not directly from Sammy the Bull, but you have to go and meet one of his guys, don't you?
Yes, I was asked to go and meet some of these new type of ecstasy dealers. You know, I've got armed guys, bouncers and stuff, so take one of them with me. And I still didn't know they were working for the Bull as I go to meet these guys at a bar in Tucson. Now, they're trying to sweat me into selling their pills. I've got a good reputation because I'm getting pills from Holland, 100, 125 milligrams of pure MDMA in clay, usually like a beige pill.
Right.
None of these coloured pills. Now, not all coloured pills are bunk, but a lot of the times when it's a coloured pill, back then in the late 1990s, you knew that it was possibly going to have something counterfeit in it.
Right.
So the pills they were trying to get me to sell were these coloured pills. So I said, look, I've got a good reputation. Don't want to be selling you guys these coloured pills. And then the big guy, there was two of them, there was the Spaniard and there was this big guy. And the big guy starts getting pissed off. Then, who the fuck are you? You know, this in our pills. Don't you know who we work for? He said Jimmy Moran. Jimmy Moran was like the undercover name for Sammy the Bull.
Right.
And then, you know, by the end of it, he was like, yeah, Sammy the Bull, we could call him and have you taken out to the desert. So, you know, I was on gamma hydroxide butamate during that meeting, which had given me false bravado. So I was like, you know, kind of acting tough to these guys as well a little bit. But after that meeting, I discussed it with some people, and we thought, oh God, you know, this is a bad scene now.
Yeah.